I definitely want to encourage you to call in tonight. So much information to talk about as we get ready for the press release with your girl, Portia Bright.
WBISLP 1069, Winterville, Aden, Grifton, Southside, Greenville, North Carolina.
Y'all ready? It's ready. Ready. There's the theme song. Get ready. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright. Say it's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright. And it is. And thank you for tuning in. It's Friday, May the 18th, 2018, of course. And I'm not sure where you're tuning in, but you're listening to the press release. And of course, I'm your hostess, Portia Bright. And I have a very special show scheduled for you tonight, of course, as always. But before we get into the show, of course, I want to take this moment to say a prayer. We actually had another school shooting today in Texas, in the southeastern part of Texas, in a city called Santa Fe. And it's been reported that 10 people were killed and 10 other people were injured. So I just want to say a small prayer for those people who are actually dealing with this turmoil right now, who have lost a family member. Heavenly Father, I ask that you will help guide those people, Father, who are in mourning right now, who have lost a family member, Father, who do not know where their next smile will come from or their next bit of hope. Heavenly Father, I ask that you give them the strength to wake up tomorrow, to go on and push forward. Heavenly Father, I ask that you give the strength and the guidance to our legislators, Father, to come through with some type of resolution so that way we can continue to go forth with our children in safety, Father, that we do not have to lose any more lives in our school system, Heavenly Father. Heavenly Father, I ask that you give them the wisdom to be able to pass legislation, Father, that's going to protect our children and is going to keep our parents safe as well, Father, because we know every time we lose someone, Father, it's within your will. However, we know that you can give them the hope that they need to go and push forward, Father. Heavenly Father, I thank you for all that you're doing in our lives and all the things that you plan on doing, Father, because without you, we would not have the ability to go on, Father. Your things are done according to your will, Father, and we just need the hope to be able to believe in what you're doing is according to your will, Father. I thank you for all that you're doing as always, Father, and I ask that you continue to heal those who are broken tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. Wow, I'm so happy to be back in the studio with you tonight. I've actually been away for the last two Fridays, beginning Friday before last, the last 2 Fridays in May, of course, I've been away. Doing some family things, of course. I actually had the pleasure of going to a wedding. My cousin got married for the first time, and she was so ecstatic. It was actually a beach wedding at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, my first beach wedding ever, and it was amazing. So I thank God for having that experience as well. And no, I did not catch the bouquet. No, I did not go up there to try to catch it myself, because I have actually been blessed with the opportunity to get married coming this fall as well, which leads me into the next bit of excitement that I actually had. Last Friday, I had the pleasure of visiting 3 states. I went from North Carolina to New Jersey, and then from New Jersey, I went to Pennsylvania to enjoy a phenomenal play out there in Ronks, Pennsylvania. It was a Jesus show. It was the live biblical showing of how, Jesus was crucified and leading up to that particular moment. And it was awesome. I mean, they had live animals in the play. And it was actually being shown at the Sight and Sound Theater in Ronks, Pennsylvania. So any church members, this is the place to take a church trip. And I would also say a school trip too, because people actually may not necessarily know about the biblical principle about Jesus and why he was crucified, and all of the different things that all the different instances that led up to him being crucified. So this is a phenomenal show to go to. I had the best time ever. It was my first time actually going to a live play where they had live animals and actors acting out and they were singing. Oh my God. I think the most touching part of that particular play was actually seeing Jesus up there on the cross and seeing those soldiers actually stab him. Oh my God. That kind of brought me to tears because it's one thing to read about something, but when you actually see it actually played out and how just the thought of how he was feeling at that particular moment, but he still gave himself and sacrificed himself for us. And so that really touched me. And so I want to encourage anybody out there who's listening, check out that particular show. They actually do some other shows too. I think they do one about Samson and a few others as well. But make sure you check that out. Now, also, then the next day, and I know everybody wants to hear about this. If you were actually following me on my social media, you know that I actually went to New York and I had the pleasure of going to visit the Statue of Liberty. It was my first time ever going to visit the Statue of Liberty. I remember some years back, I was actually on my way there when I was in New York for the first time. I think it was about 4 years ago, but I got all the way to the ferry, to the gate, of course, and they were closed. Oh my God. I was so devastated, but I think God wanted me to save my first time to go with a phenomenal group of people, and they were actually my family-in-law, but I call them my family-in-love, my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law, which are actually from New Jersey. So they took me over, as well as with my fiance. They took us over to see the Statue of Liberty, and it was great. But while I was there, I'm always trying to leave my mark on history. I had to do something out of the box, of course. Then, Portia, I'm always doing something. So while I was there, I actually proposed to my fiance, and so he didn't expect it at all. Oh my God. And I think I did that because, a few months back, of course, he had been asking me, or he kind of made like a kind of smart comment that I hadn't put a ring on it. So I say, you know what, I'm gonna get this guy right here. Of course, he had proposed to me back in October, but I said I had to do something a little bit out of the ordinary. So I got him a ring, and it was a phenomenal, nice ring. I just didn't want to buy a ring and just say, here's your ring. I wanted to do something that he wouldn't expect me to do. Well, nobody would expect me to do, but I actually got down on one knee and asked him to marry me. And so you can actually check that out on my YouTube channel, Portia Bright TV, and make sure you subscribe as well to actually see that video, as well as I was able to get me a bridal appointment at the, I'm not sure if you watch the TLC network, but they actually have this show that comes on, and it's called Say Yes to the Dress. So a lot of people, since I got engaged, has been telling me, you need to go on that show, Say Yes to the Dress, on TLC. But I'm like, guys, I don't know any TV executives on the TLC network or on Say Yes to the Dress, although I would hope to. I would love for someone to, call me up. But, everybody was telling me, like, you need to go on the show. I'm like, guys, I don't have any hookup with Say Yes to the Dress. So anyway, I wasn't going to let that stop me at all. I went and did my own episode of Say Yes to the Dress. But leading up to that, I was able to get a bridal appointment. And let me tell you how God just works things out. So I was able to get a bridal appointment. And by the time we actually got on the ferry to come back over to New Jersey to where our car was parked at, to go to this, you have to go to the Statue of Liberty, but you have to park your car at the ferry port and get on the ferry, of course, and then go across the water to the little island that the Statue of Liberty sits on. So I did that, and by the time we got back, it was literally after 12, almost 12, I want to say almost like 12:25 or something like that. So we did that, and I was looking at the clock. I was like, oh my God, I managed to get one. They had one appointment left the day I called, and that was like the day before, which was May the 11th. My appointment happened. Thank God they had one appointment at 1:15 on for May the 12th, which was the last day I was actually going to be in New York. So I went to that bridal appointment at Confel's Bridal, but I had to cancel the appointment before I got there because with their policy, they're saying that it costs $100 if you don't show or if you don't call. So I'm looking at the way my bank account set up. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be able to just give away $100, knowing that I got to, put gas in the car when I get back, buy groceries for the house, and so forth. So I went ahead and canceled the appointment, but I was a little sad, of course, and my mother-in-law, they were kind of sad a little bit too, but, being the positive person that I am, I was not about to let that negative energy descend on my moment that I had going on. Some was like, Portia, cancel the appointment, but still go. I was like, still go? You know what, I hate to be disappointed, but you know what, I'm going to do it. So I ended up canceling the appointment, but I still went up there to Kleinfield's Bridal. And so once I did that, I got there. From the time I stepped out of the car, I was excited. I was blown away. Just to be there where they actually shoot the television show, Say Yes to the Dress, made me feel like, it was like an unexplainable joy. But I got out of the car. Of course, I had to go start snapping my pictures, do my little photo shoot. So I went in, of course, and I was greeted by a phenomenal receptionist. And I want to say her name was Charlotte. But anyway, when the waiting room is gorgeous. They literally have these designer gowns in the waiting room. And so on my left, there was a host of brides that were super excited, just like myself. And so they were all, taking their pictures and stuff, how someone does when they're excited. So I tell the lady what my problem was, that I'm only here for one day. I'm flying back to North Carolina the next day. And I told her I had a 1:15 appointment, but I had this canceled. So she was like, well, let me call I'm downstairs to the manager to see if they'll still go ahead and accept you. So I was like, fingers crossed. I was like, well, thank you. Of course, I was very polite, of course. And so, Lord and behold, about 10 minutes later, they hit me up and they're like, yeah, they're going to go ahead and accept you. I could have did cartwheels literally in the waiting room. I wish I can have their video footage of what their waiting room looked like that day, because I swear my smile was literally on 1 million watts. So of course I go back there where all their beautiful dresses are, but they actually have a full figured section, which is a room with just full figured gowns, of course, for full figured women. I'm a full figured woman, and so I go back there and I feel like I am in heaven. Do you hear me? There were so many beautiful gowns of all different flavors, and oh my God, it was one of the most amazing experiences ever. So of course I pick out a few gowns. But what I come to realize is they don't have a lot of gowns, the gowns that I was looking for. And so I tried on a few gowns. And so then I found this one beautiful gown that I loved. I really did. I really loved it. So I tried all the gowns on, and I'm checking myself out, getting my little swag together for how I'm going to be on my wedding day. And so I'm checking the gowns out, of course. And then, of course, I run across this one problem. The dress that I was looking at didn't have all of the things that I wanted. So unfortunately, I did not get a wedding dress that day. I couldn't say yes to the dress because the dress didn't have all the bells and whistles that I was looking for. And so, I was a little disappointed and everything like that, but I didn't feel like, I didn't get that feeling like I wasn't going to find it. You know what I mean? Just because I didn't find it in New York that day, I didn't feel like I wasn't going to find it. However, I am still on my mission to be on Say Yes to the Dress. So anybody out there that's listening, of course, please let TLC know that your girl is trying to be on the show. Country girl from little old Grifton, North Carolina, trying to be on Say Yes to the Dress. And I hear they're actually shooting in Atlanta right now. So anybody that knows, anybody will Say Yes to the Dress, tell them your girl Portia Bright is trying to be on the show. And I'm excited. I really am. I'm looking forward to, taking this next stage in my life. It's not all about the dress for me, although I like to find my dream dress, but it's not all about that. It's about the person that, God has provided for me to, be my best friend forever, be my helpmate, and, my spiritual guidance as well. That's one of the most important things to me. And so I'm so appreciative for all the things that he's doing in my life, and, and all of the, different experiences that he's introducing me to. Because it's one thing to get engaged, or prior to get engaged and realize or start dreaming about what that day is going to be like, but when you're actually living it out, it's a totally different situation. And so I call it a lituation. That's what it is, a lituation, because God is amazing, and the things that he can do in your life can really like blow your mind. And so my mind has literally been blown with these experiences that I've had, since I said yes to my phenomenal guy. And so I want to encourage someone out there who's feeling discouraged because they haven't had their love story play out the way that they wanted to have it play out. Just stay positive, work on yourself, continue to make those sacrifices, continue to fast, pray. That thing will play out in your favor. God has someone out there specifically for you. I know it doesn't seem like that, but there is someone out there for you. So I want to encourage you to stay positive, stay diligent, persistent, and be patient. It's okay to not sell yourself short. You don't just have to be with anybody. You can be with that person that God has for you, but you have to be patient and you have to wait it out. So stay positive out there. Of course, I hope you will continue to follow my story in regards to me leading up to the wedding and finding my actual dream dress. We're actually going to get ready for a sponsorship break, so I want to encourage you to keep your dial up because when we come back, I'll be sharing a host of information, some news that has taken place this week. We've had so many different things take place, especially here in North Carolina. So I hope you're still following us on Facebook at Awesome Radio 106.9, the press release with Portia Bright TV, Instagram, the press release for you. And we will be right back. You're listening to Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. All right, awesome family. I hope you're having a good time out there.
Just outside of a gated community where he resides. Well, this story is still developing, but it seems T.I. got busted at his own gated community in Georgia after he got into it with a security guard for the neighborhood. Now, according to some local people who were out there, the rapper was trying to get into his house at around 4 a.m. He didn't have his key, and so T.I. and a friend argued with the guard at the security shack. He wouldn't let them enter. They got heated, and the cops showed up. Now, law enforcement sources did tell TMZ that T.I. was in fact allowed to get into his gated community after this initial argument with the guard, but then he returned on foot shortly afterwards to confront the guy again. That's when the cops were called to the scene and ended up arresting T.I. So, we'll see what happens with this. And for all these stories and a whole lot more, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Tanya Hollywood and AURN online.
Join the conversation, Kingdom Conversation with Elder Doris Bailey
and Apostle Anthony Daniels every Saturday at 12 noon on Awesome Radio
106.9 FM.
Awesome family. I'm having a good time out there tonight. I'll open the phone lines up in a few minutes to give you an opportunity to call in, of course. And we are back, awesome family, of course. You are listening to the press release, and of course, I'm your hostess, Portia Bright. If you're just tuning in with us, of course, we've been talking about a host of things. I talked about my experiences in New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. It was phenomenal. But it wouldn't be the press release, of course, if I didn't have some educational news for you, some things that you need to know about. But before I get into that, of course, wherever you're tuning in right now, I want to encourage you to encourage a friend to actually link in with us, either on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM, and also if they do that on Awesome Radio, they would actually be able to see me live in the studio right now, the things that are taking place, and they can also check me out on the press release with Portia Bright. You can check me out on Instagram at the press release for you, and so if you do that, of course, you can actually head over to our website as well. Send that link to one of your friends and family members at www.wbisawesome.org, and of course, if they do that, they can continue to take the radio station wherever you go, which is always a plus because we're always sharing information as well. So this week, I want to let you know the General Assembly actually took back in for the short session this week. Oh my God, it was bananas, literally. And so what the short session basically does is, work on budget items and stuff like that, and try to critique a few things and possibly add some more things in. But we were actually greeted by a host of different people that we're usually not greeted by, which was teachers, counselors, children, custodians, all types of people, parents. it was crazy. Literally about 20 to 30,000 teachers and parents and children actually came to Raleigh for a teachers march. Literally, as I mentioned to you last week, they actually had to close down the school. Check this out. So between 20 and 30,000 students and public school supporters, all dressed up in red, brave the rain and humidity, to actually stage a groundbreaking rally in downtown Raleigh. On every street corner, public space, or legislative hallway, there were red shirts. Literally, there were red shirts. I was actually there. That's actually where I work. They came early and they stayed literally all day long. And so the rally began with a march through downtown Raleigh to the General Assembly. Then as many teachers entered the legislative building that were actually allowed, because we actually have new security measures to actually keep people who actually work in the General Assembly safe. And so the rest of them, pretty much the rest of the teachers who actually rallied actually stayed outside. And they were actually sending a message with their presence, but also with signs that said things like, I'm 24 and my dad still buys my school supplies. And so you can actually head over to one of the newspaper sites to actually see some of that information. And one of my friends came too, and he works in the school system, and does some teacher educational work as well. And his shirt says "straight out of funding." I thought that was so hilarious because teachers were there on a mission, and so teachers actually talked to legislators respectively, explaining that North Carolina spends less per pupil on public schools than we did 10 years ago. And they also wanted teacher pay trails, the national average, by 10,000, and were behind on neighboring states like South Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, and Georgia. And so with years of neglected funding for textbooks and digital resources has left many classrooms with none of the resources that they actually need to be able to educate our students. And so what also has occurred is there have been cuts to school nurses, counselors, and other position shortages that students need to actually be successful. And teachers are taking time, and they're taking teachers time away from teaching by not necessarily having the resources that they need to, teach our students, which was one of the biggest issues. Teachers pay and not having the resources that they need. And one of my girlfriends who's actually a teacher out in Cary, North Carolina, she sent me a message talking about they had cut off the paper supplies at her school for the rest of the year because of lack of funding. And I was like mind blown because I'm looking at this thing. When I was in school, I don't remember a time when we had to really worry about school supplies and not having paper and stuff like that. I never experienced that. And so just to see how the school system is being neglected right now, it really hurts my heart because we are at a trying time, and it's the only way that we can overcome a lot of the situations that we're dealing with in our communities is by education. Educating on, race, educating on science, educating our children on things that are going to be important in the future. And so if teachers don't have the necessary resources to be able to do that, then where are we going to go? What direction are we going? I feel like this should even be a discussion right now. Like education should be like at the top, rating with healthcare, air, and finances. Like, I don't know what's going on here, but this is a praying time right now. So I want to encourage you to continue to pray vigilantly for our educational system, our legislators, our lawmakers, and as well as our parents and teachers and stuff too, because this is very burdensome for them to know that their children are going to school. They're sending them there to get a good quality education, but it doesn't seem like that's the case right now. And so I am really, really going to do my part to make sure that we're raising awareness about this issue. I actually work in the General Assembly, so I get opportunity to see how lawmakers interact and the things the legislation that they're working on. I get the opportunity to see that stuff. So I am really looking forward to some really great things taking place in the next few weeks. And so, especially now, the next steps on public school investment. Now, on July 1st, we begin the two-year budget passed last year, and the General Assembly has an opportunity to actually amend the budget to invest more in public education and teacher pay. Now, investing more in public education is one of the biggest priorities, and so everybody, I'm not going to say everybody, but Most of the legislators are urging more colleagues to do more in terms of trying to make sure that we are at least giving the governor what he actually is asking for. And so Governor Cooper has provided an excellent roadmap on how to actually do that. And he has already made his recommendations on what budget adjustments we should make. And so here are some of those. Governor Cooper's recommend tax fairness for teacher pay. He wants to freeze plan tax cuts for incomes over $200,000 and for corporations. That's basically 70% of whom are out of state, to generate $110 million. He also wants to use that $110 million to add to scheduled pay raises to give an average raises of 8% for teachers and principals. Now, no teacher would receive less than 5% raise, which is a critical since previous day raises have left out many veteran teachers. And Governor Cooper also wants to give pay raise. He says that pay raise would put us on a path to reach the national average in years. And so Governor Cooper also is basically recommending providing a $150 stipend for classroom teachers for out-of-pocket school supply expenses. Now, a lot of teachers, which is a sad situation, are getting paid, and just remind you that they're not getting paid enough because with inflation and stuff like that, gas prices, the inflation of food prices and so many different things, they're basically having to take the little monies that they get. They have to buy school supplies for their kids out of their paychecks. And that's wrong, especially as taxpayers. We're paying our money into the system, and we're praying for them to be good stewards of our money. But when you get a situation where a teacher has to take the money that they're making, that they're working hard, that they went to school for, and they've sacrificed themselves for, to actually educate our children, and now they have to use the money that they need to survive in order to put it back in their classroom, that is a problem. And so I feel like something needs to take place. I think they still need to be consistent. I think they need to be persistent, continue to call their legislators and let them know how they feel. Don't just go up there in March and then we drop the ball on it. I think we need to continue to let them know what we're feeling and how we feel about this and where they should put our taxpayer dollars. Now, I actually seen one sign that said teachers do vote, which is great because we need to make sure that we're putting people in office who are going to be good stewards of our money and who's going to make sure that they're passing legislation that's going to help benefit our educational system and is going to help finance the ability to live in general. You know what I mean? Like, our standard of living has gone up, but we haven't seen any raises at all, especially state employees, teachers. Those are important. So I'm looking forward to see how things are going to take place. We're actually about to head over to a small sponsorship break. I want to encourage you to keep your dial lock on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. We'll be right back with more of the press release with your girl Portia Bright, as I have so much more news to share with you. So I hope you will stay here because you don't want to miss out. Like, it's news you need to know, of course. It's me, your girl, always has your back. So keep your dial lock on 106.9 FM.
Kingdom Conversation with Elder Doris Bailey
And Apostle Anthony Dames every Saturday at 12 noon on Awesome Radio.
106.9 FM.
Are church or ministry staff lunches a deductible business expense in America? Stay tuned.
That's Attorney David Gibbs Jr. And this is the Legal Alert.
What does and does not constitute a business expense for tax purposes can be a confusing minefield for pastors and churches. Can the pastor take a visiting evangelist out for a meal? What about an internal staff lunch at a local diner? In order for lunches to qualify as a business expense, the lunch needs to have a legitimate business purpose, and that purpose needs to be documented. I repeat, you have to document the purpose. Who was there? What was the ministry reason? Our legal team has aided churches on tax issues for decades, and it would be our privilege to answer your question on deductible expenses as well as other matters.
The Legal Alert website is loaded up with great tools to help you. We posted a huge assortment of legal brochures you can download, case updates you can easily track. Then there's our e-alert newsletter, along with a comprehensive publication catalog. Why not take full advantage of these free resources right now at christianlaw.org. That's christianlaw.org.
Things I do, and the way that I trust in you, and don't understand the way we go. And we are back, awesome family. Of course, if you're just tuning in with me, you're listening to the press release, and of course, I'm your hostess, Portia Bright. And so I so thank you so much for actually tuning in with me tonight. It's Friday. Of course, it's after a long week. We've all had so many things going on this week, especially here in North Carolina. Like, it's been really live, especially, with things going on with dealing with education and just a lot of different things. And so, if you're not on your toes, you can actually miss a lot, which is why we actually have the press release. Your girl here tries to keep you informed on things that you need to know. And so if you just tuned in, of course, before we went to our sponsorship break, we were actually talking about, things that took place in Raleigh this week dealing with the teachers rally. And so, we had, just to catch you up, we had about 20 to 30,000 teachers who actually in Raleigh, demanding, some changes in education, dealing with teachers' pay and being funded, schools being funded. And so a lot of things took place. We had, oh my God, it was so overwhelming. But I was just breaking down to you, of course, what the governor is recommending in his budget that he actually released for the short session. And so he wants to provide $150 stipend for classroom teachers for out-of-pocket school supplies, $25 million for textbooks and digital resources. Now check this out. I was actually talking to one teacher, and she said that the textbooks that she had when she was in school, and mind you, this is a grown woman now, she's literally about 24, are the same textbooks that they actually had when she was in school, when I think she said when George W. Bush was president. And can you imagine how behind our kids are right now if if they have to go to school and learn about things that took place back then and not be included in the things that are taking place now? Like, where those textbooks at talk about, the first black president that we actually had? Children need to know about that. And I feel like, a lot of important facts are being, are falling through the cracks because we don't have the necessary resources in the school. And so that's why it's important to make sure that we are actually getting people elected into office who are going to make sure that these things are going to happen. And so another thing that the governor is recommending is $75 million in lottery receipts to help local schools build classrooms to meet the class size chaos and K through 3 mandated class size reductions, $65 million for school safety and communication upgrades for public schools, community college and universities, $55 million to hire more nurses, counselors, psychologists, and social workers, as well as to enhance a training provided by school personnel on mental health challenges. Now, I was actually at a school safety forum like a few days ago. Actually, it was on Monday. And one of the superintendents was actually on the panel out in Wilson County. And he basically said they had 6 nurses, and I think he said they had over 10,000 students, if I'm not mistaken. And they only had 6 nurses. Like, I was like, what? How are you functioning right now? And I think he only said they had about 3 counselors or so. How are they literally functioning? Like, they're basically saying like a lot of the things that are taking place in school is because of mental health issues, mental health challenges that are not being addressed, and that's all because, which is evidence based, that they don't have the necessary personnel in the schools who can actually provide these children with the services that they actually need, which is sad. Like, how are we going to keep cutting school budgets? Like, come on now. We need to be worried about, other issues, other things that are being funded that we shouldn't necessarily be worried about. Like, seriously. Because if you do your research, you can check out on a lot of articles that have been released in regards to the way taxpayer dollars have been spent in the past. Like, I've heard some ridiculous stuff like private golf courses being funded by state dollars. And I'm like, really? Come on. And so do your research. You got to be paying attention to what's going on, because if not, you're going to miss out on a lot of information that's being put out there. And so also with this governor's budget, he's recommending funding for 2,000 additional pre-K slots and an increase in Smart Start funding for about $15 million. And so I guess the next question is, what will the General Assembly do? Well, here it is. And so the legislative rumor mill says that Republican leaders are working on the budget in secret and intend to pass it quickly with little to no involvement from other legislators in the public. And so there may not be even committee meetings or opportunities to offer amendments to some of this stuff. And so, which is always another reason for you to be making sure that you're paying attention to your representative, that you're on them, you're calling them, you're emailing them, you're coming by their offices. And sometimes you need to get out of the house and get from behind your computer and come talk to your legislator, to make sure that you are getting you're getting the results that you're hoping to get. And so if you don't do that, a lot of times, a lot of the things that you have on your list that you want to get accomplished don't necessarily get accomplished. And so I'm just waiting to see how things are going to play out. Of course, I'll be doing my part. Now, spending $24 billion of your money this way would be reckless and unprecedented. But simply put, it has never happened before in modern North Carolina history. Yet it's not surprising from the same leadership that brought HB2 to North Carolina. Now, I am looking forward to see how things are going to play out. Honey, things are hitting the fan, like seriously. Lord have mercy. I'm flabbergasted a lot of the time. Like, I don't even know. Like, I don't know. I'm just continuing to make sure I'm staying on course. And I'm reading everything so that I make sure that I'm informing you on what's going on, because if you blink, you might miss something. Like, seriously, that's how fast things are happening. That's how fast, some of these laws are being passed. Like, you got to pay attention. You got to get educated on the legislative process. And so in the future, I'll make sure I have someone here who can actually discuss how the legislative process works, because I feel like that's important for people to know about. A lot of times people don't really understand that process because, maybe they haven't had that experience with, the legislative process. Actually, before I started working, with a lawmaker, I really didn't understand the legislative process. So it actually took me a while to actually, understand how actually a law is passed, and, the process leading up to that point of it becoming a law. And so it's a lot to learn, but I gotta tell you, it's important for all of us to know how that process works, because then we can understand how these people get this thing passed, and we can figure out some type of strategy in order to make sure that we get things passed into law that we feel will help the masses, because that's the most important thing, helping more people, because we're all a community. But we've been seeing a lot of things play out in the news, over the past few years or so that we haven't been happy with, and so a lot of people have been struggling. A lot of people have been dealing with a lot of these issues, and we are seeing it play out in the way that people are acting out in public, like being violent towards one another, and these school shootings and safety issues and crime and healthcare. I mean, the list just basically goes on, and so we got to make sure we're doing our part. We got to get out there to vote. We got to make sure that as young people too, we're doing our part. We got to make sure that we're getting educated on the issues. We got to make sure that we're willing to sacrifice ourselves to actually, you feel that you're capable of running for office or being a leader, then you got to make sure that you're getting necessary training, so that way you can prepare yourself to actually run for office and be a part of the process, because there are a lot of leaders out there, and I call it underground, because these people are behind the scenes. They don't necessarily have to be out front or have that title, but they are making power moves. Like, they are really contributing to the betterment of our community, betterment of our state. And so we need to start looking at some of those people behind the scenes as well. Not those people who are so eager to get up there. Like, sometimes you gotta, check to see what their motives are. Why are you so ready to, have a title or whatever? And so we gotta make sure we're doing our part. Make sure we're vetting people who are actually trying to run for office, because one thing that you can do that can change the whole dynamics of a whole lot of things is elect the wrong person into office. And I've seen it play out, honey. It ain't pretty. And so we're actually about to head over to a sponsorship break, and I want to encourage you to keep your dial up. You know, I have so much more information that I want to share with you. We're getting ready for our last segment of the press release. I know it goes by so fast, like it really does. God, I've been so happy to be back in the studio tonight. I feel so much at home, guys. You don't understand how much of a good time I have spending my Friday nights with you. Like, I have the best time ever. And so I'm looking at, have some special guests on the show. Of course, you can always email me at portiabright@wbisawesomeradio.org. Shoot me an instant message on my social media accounts and let me know if you're interested in being a guest on the press release with Portia Bright on Awesome Radio, of course. So yeah, keep your dial lock. Of course, I'll be right back right here with more radio with the spirit of excellence here on 106.9 FM. So keep your dial lock. You're listening to the press release, and I'm your girl, Portia Bright.
In Boston Hill, please join me every Monday
Guys.
here at WBISLP. That's 106.9 Awesome Radio.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
Stephen Moore, economist with the Heritage Foundation, wrote an op-ed with the intriguing title, Goodbye OPEC. He argued that America was not only on the way to becoming energy independent, but also headed towards becoming energy dominant. What a change this is from a few decades ago. I grew up with environmentalists warning us that we were running out of food and energy. They were predicting future famines and a major energy crisis. It was nearly impossible to imagine any way this country would be on its way to energy independence. Stephen Moore was on my radio program to explain this remarkable turnaround. Much of it is due to the American oil shale boom, which has significantly changed drilling operations in the Permian Basin in Texas and the Bakken Shale in North Dakota. As America gets closer to becoming a net exporter of oil, that will have a positive effect on reducing our trade deficit. Obviously, Saudi Arabia is still a player in the oil business, but most of OPEC is fading away. Oil is now listed at $70 a barrel. As price increases, this can help the economy. Of course, politics is another reason why America is moving towards energy independence and even energy dominance. The previous president wanted to restrict oil exploration and fossil fuel development. The current president has a different attitude. Some have called the oil shale boom Donald Trump's revenge. The president has been willing to free up lands in places like Alaska and has allowed permits for new pipelines. All of these changes in energy policy and energy production are reasons that it may finally be time to say goodbye to OPEC. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Take Kirby and the Point of View team with you on the go with the Point of View app. Search for Point of View Radio at the Apple or Google Play stores.
Oh, we're coming back. What's that? Listening to the press release, and I am, of course, your hostess, Portia Bright. And so we had a good show tonight. This is actually my last actual segment for tonight. So next up, we're going to talk about some awesome cash opportunities. Of course, I want to let you know about a phenomenal program that's being offered by the North Carolina Department of Commerce. They have the North Carolina Small Business Disaster Recovery Assistance Program. And this is important too because a lot of businesses, a lot of communities are still trying to recover for the Hurricane Matthew. And I think we had one more that came through as well. I can't remember the name of it. But people are still trying to, clean up. They're still trying to recover from a lot of those natural disaster that has taken place. And so the North Carolina Department of Commerce has available $12.5 million to support the recovery of small businesses located in areas impacted by Hurricane Matthew. And so the recovery funds are being administered by the North Carolina Department of Commerce's Rural Economic Development Division and are provided from community development, block grants, disaster recovery funds. And so 3 nonprofit small business lending institutions have been awarded money from these funds to expand access to credit for small businesses with Matthew affected areas. And so favorable loans up to $150,000 with deferred principal and interest payments are available. Now the lender's contact information follows. Inquiries about this program directly with the participating leader. Contact any of the representatives at the Carolina Small Business Development Fund, the Center for Community Self-Help, and the North Carolina Community Development Initiative. And so these are eligible borrowers. To be an eligible borrower in this program, a business must meet the following criteria. They must meet the standards of a small business as defined in Title 13 Code of Federal Regulations. So you will have to check that out. They require funds to cover from Hurricane Matthew caused physical or economic damage, especially flooding. So you have to have Hurricane Matthew caused physical or economic damage, especially from flooding, because I know, especially over there in Kinston, North Carolina, and a lot of places in Greenville, North Carolina, were affected by this. Like flooding literally had the downtown Greenville area and the downtown Lenore County area flooded. Like literally businesses were underwater. And so so I know this is going to help a lot of people. And so have one other source of funds from their unmet needs to meet hurricane recovery costs. And fourth and final, they have to have their primary place of business located in Hurricane Matthew caused flood affected areas of North Carolina, especially the counties of Robertson, Cumberland, Edgecombe, and Wayne. And so this is going to help a lot of businesses who have been struggling to get things back on course after this whole situation. And so eligible uses of funds include financing for payment of interior and exterior repairs and property improvements, financing for furniture, fixtures, and equipment purchase and installation of equipment, using grant or loan financing to provide working capital or to pay for marketing costs, operating expenses, and inventory, and funds for relocations of any displaced person due to the CDBG project. And so this is an awesome cash opportunity for some business out there, from some small business who's looking to recover from Hurricane Matthew. And this is an assistance program specifically for small businesses. And so I know I've shared on previous shows about some awesome opportunities for residents who are looking to, get some funding and stuff like that to repair their homes, who are still struggling from Hurricane Matthew. And can you believe this? Like literally, it's like almost a year and some change later, and people are still trying to find a way to actually recover from Hurricane Matthew. And so this has been a really big issue for a lot of people. Because people don't know what to do, especially with natural disasters. And some people just haven't been able to afford, maybe insurance for, their homes and stuff like that. A lot of people don't expect to get hit by like a hurricane or anything like that. And so they end up in these situations after these storms come, and, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to recover. And a lot of these times it's poverty-stricken homes as well. And so, I want to encourage you, if you are able, to make sure you're researching opportunities to, get some funding to help you recover for Hurricane Matthew. Because if not, then, a lot of people are going to continue to struggle. A lot of people may even, have gotten some health issues from, living in places that have not been effectively maybe cleaned or, restored since those hurricanes actually took place. And so next up on the press release, I want to talk about something that has been really bugging like a lot of different people, and that is calling 911 on Black people. Now listen to this. Calling 911 means different things to white and Black people. And listen to me now, of course I'm not a racist. I love all people, but this is very important to me because, being from a Black community, you kind of understand, a lot of the things that have taken place, and some things just don't make sense. But check this out. Calling 911 means different things to white and Black people. White people keep calling the cops on Black people for no reason, and so that's dangerous. And I know I'm not the only one. You've been seeing this play out on the news time and time again. And so just recently, a black Yale student was taking a nap in a common room in her dorm earlier this week when a white student saw her sleeping and decided to call the police. Now, the graduate student at Yale was woken up by a classmate and interrogated by law enforcement for about 15 minutes. Now, according to reports, the white student told police that she appeared out of place in the building. And so, the black student was, hysterical. She said, "I deserve to be here. I paid tuition like everybody else." And so, the video was actually gone viral. And so she goes on to say, "I'm not going to justify my existence here." And this is just one of the many cases that have taken place. The Yale student is the latest in a number of recent high-profile cases where people of color have been racially profiled, confronted by police, and in some cases arrested after white, business owners, employees, or bystanders view them with suspicion. And so many of the incidents have actually spread on social media, calling national attention to the issue. And so my awesome question for you tonight is, do you think that white people should be fined when they call the cops on black people once the cops deem it unnecessary use of 911? And so I want you to give me a call and let me know what your thoughts are on that. And you can give me a call at 252-756-2008. That number is 252-756-2008. Do you think that white people should be fined when they call the cops on black people once the cops deem it unnecessary use of 911? I want to hear your thoughts on this because this is a touching issue. Like, me being a black woman, and actually having been from a low poverty area growing up, we didn't have all the best of everything. But my parents made sure that we had what was necessary. And so I had opportunity to see a lot of things play out in my community. And so, with social media, that kind of sheds the light on a lot of different things in regards to, people call, specifically for tonight, white people calling cops on black people for no apparent reason. And I actually, it kind of actually went spiraled out with this Caucasian lady, this white lady. She was actually in the park, of course, and there was this a black family who was barbecuing on a charcoal grill. And so what happened with that situation is she said that white lady told the black man that you shouldn't be here. And he's looking like, this is my community too. He says he's actually been to the park a number of times because it's in his community. And so she goes on to tell him that, you shouldn't be barbecuing here. You can't have a charcoal grill here in this part of the park. And he goes on to say, "Man, I'm justified by being here." Well, she gets on the phone, she begins to call 911, and she stayed on hold for a very long time. And so goes on and goes on. So I watched the video and I'm seeing her, the cops actually finally arrive. And when they arrive, of course, she started crying. She started really putting on during this point in time. And so once the cops get there, they actually, let him know that he's okay with being there. And so this lady is literally still crying, talking about she's being harassed. And everybody around is like, that's not the case. And so this is basically how it sparked a conversation with people from all over the nation. Should white people be fined when they call the cops on someone who, well, not necessarily someone, call the cops on black people, let's just say that. Should white people be fined when they call the cops on black people and then it's deemed unnecessary after the police arrive there for use of 911? Me personally, I feel like there should be some type of law being set into place to prevent this type of situation from taking place, because for being black in America now, we feel like you can't be safe. Like, where can you be safe at? And, a mentor of mine made a very good point. The only place that you can actually be safe is where you're standing at the moment and when you're black, And so we've been seeing it play out. A lot of, black men have been gunned down. People in the black community in general, what is the conversation we should have right now? And we actually have a caller. Calling you on Awesome Radio 106.9. What's your name and where you're calling from? Hey, Matthew. Thank you for listening to Awesome Radio. So we've been having a conversation tonight, and the question is, Do you think that white people should be fined when they call the cops on black people once the cops deem it unnecessary use of 911? Mm-hmm. Right. I do see where you're coming from. But this is, I know you've been seeing it play out too. But just recently, a black man who was, rolling his baby around in the stroller without the mom, of course, but he was rolling his baby around in the stroller, had the police called on him because he looked suspicious. So when I ask that question, I'm talking about instances where it's obvious, for anybody else who's looking on, that this is not something that you should be worried about. You know what I mean? Like for those instances. Right. Because you actually saw the video of how she started, getting hysterical, like she was being harassed, and it was completely the opposite. You know what I mean? Yeah. That was very outrageous. And so, like, when I saw that, I was like, wow. But you just imagine how many black people go through these situations on the regular. Like, yeah, every day. And so I feel like there should be some type of legislation. I'm not sure if you'll agree or not. There should be some legislation in the works that can help protect black people as well. Because now law enforcement officers are having to go through training to actually deal with us. Like, we're the only race that you have to go through training to deal with. Why is that? Yeah, so I really appreciate you calling Matthew. Make sure you head over to the press release with Portia Bright. Leave me a comment. Leave us your stars on Awesome Radio 106.9. Oh, wow, thank you. All right. So there you go, Awesome Family. We actually had Matthew call in and let us know what his thoughts were in regards to the whole, should white people be fined when they call the cops on black people for no odd reason. And his case was, sometimes we need to make sure that people are not getting deterred from calling the cops because that could save lives. I totally agree with that because sometimes you never know. But in recent instances, we've been playing out, this was unnecessary for people to call the cops on someone for no apparent reason. And so I really appreciate you awesome listeners for listening, for spending your time with me on Friday nights. I have such the best time, and it's so great to be back in the studio with you tonight. I would encourage you to make sure that you continue to listen to all the other awesome shows on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. Every day of the week, there's some phenomenal information being shared throughout the week. So make sure you're staying locked in. I already showed you how you can do that. You can visit the Awesome Radio 106.9 Facebook page. You can stay locked in with me on Awesome Radio 106.9, the press release with Portia Bright on Facebook, and the press release for you with the number 4 and the letter U on Instagram, and also with Portia Bright on Facebook and Instagram. And so I'm always available, always posting things. So I thank you. I will actually be here the same time on Awesome Radio next week, same place. So make sure you keep me locked in, set your timer on your clock so you can listen to Awesome Radio. And thank you. You're listening to the press release, and I'm your girl, Portia Bright, signing out.